A lot of people think that, okay, I need to be, a jack of all trades and I need to, this, and this, or I'll miss this population or this demographic and whatnot. Actually being specialized or an expert in certain areas allows you to find your audience a lot quicker. That actually allows you to charge a premium because you're great at it. It segments out. And if you look at the luxury market, they want the best of the best. I always go back to the foundation, and having clarity on who you are is so big, because I think once you know, it allows every other decision in your business to come a lot clearer, because that doesn't serve you or it does. And then it allows you to connect with your audience. But I think a lot of times people don't realize their past life experiences are setting them up for so much in their business. Like I believe that if you're going to lead thousands, which is what I feel like he's placed on my heart, then there's a level of preparation that needs to happen and breaking down and going through. So one of the biggest things I think that I've had to go through lately is...
Welcome to another edition of the CYR Podcast, where if you clean your room, you change your life. Today, we have a special guest, Vanessa Mitera. That's how you pronounce it, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. How you doing today?
I am amazing. I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and then we're going to dive right into things.
Okay. So I like to start off with, I think most people, first thing they see about me is that I'm a business owner, but I'm a mom. I have 2 boys. They're young, so I'm in the trenches right now. And then my husband, I've been with him since high school, and he's also a business owner. So we juggle life together, and I'm a business owner. I do brand and marketing strategy. And I also have a faith-based community where we learn all about how to integrate our faith and our business and kind of have this beautiful ecosystem that I believe that God wants us to live. So aside from that, I'm really boring. I don't do a lot of stuff. This is like my thing. I'm so passionate about just being chill and hanging out, being outside, reading my Bible, like reading books. So not a lot to me, but.
No, don't do that. That's a lot. That's a lot right there. A lot of different hats that you wear.
Yes. Yes.
And I too know what it's like to be boring, but I don't think it's boring. Like when you're running a business, when you're passionate about what you do, like a lot of your mental energy, and at least for myself. So if this is not for you, you can just be like, nah, bro, like that's not what I feel. But
no,
like,
already I can agree.
Yeah. Like I just noticed like I get enjoyment and just like passion out of, man, what can I create? What can I do?
Yep.
Like when a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I know, they're like, oh, let's go hang out. Let's go do this. Let's go here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm tired. I want to do this. I would rather put my energy over here. Yes. I don't know if you relate to that.
Oh, I can absolutely relate to that. I think so much of my day is just spent thinking about 3 different things. Like 1, what's the next thing in the business? What do my kids need taken care of? What does my husband need? Obviously me as well. But it's just, I find contentment in that. So everything else is just like, not a take it or leave it, but I don't need it as often as what some other people do. Plus I'm kind of an ambivert where it's like, okay, I find enjoyment just being at the house. So
definitely. I feel that. First question, first big question.
Okay.
Being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, but then also being someone who is big on their faith, mm-hmm. and merging the two together is something that I think, like, if you look at most like business gurus or whatever, like they're like, don't do that. Mm-hmm. For you, what was the journey like of coming to the point where you're like, no, I'm going to put my faith into my business?
Yeah. And
how has it been and what does it blossom into for you?
So when I first started business, I wasn't as bold in my faith. And I think that that's okay. So a lot of women I coach, your faith is a subtle guide behind the scenes. And that's what it was for me for so long. And then I started my podcast, which if God ever calls you to do anything, most of the time you're like, me? Like, no way. And so, for a while I kind of put off the podcast and then finally started it. And the thing that I knew is that there was this gap between faith and business, just like you talked about, where it's always one or the other. You don't talk about it. It's kind of behind the scenes. And I just knew that in some way I wanted to glorify God in my business. So my podcast was all about that. And then it kind of went on. I was continuing to grow courses and do a lot of stuff within my business. I was writing out my first course, and I wrote it strictly just business, didn't have my faith put into it. And then there was just this moment. I had a guest on my podcast, and I love her husband, and they are so bold in their faith. And when I had her on, one of the things that I told her, I was like, I love that you guys are so bold. And then it hit me. I'm like, how do I have a podcast about glorifying God in your business, but he's not anywhere in any of my messaging or anything that I was doing. And I was like, you know what? He is the one that brought me to this point. I have to include him in it. So I rewrote every aspect of my course because it was ready to go, ready to publish. And it's just in that day, I had so much confirmation of that decision. There were like things that would pop up on Facebook. Like, I think that's where God knows sometimes he can hit me the most is like through something on TikTok or a meme that just came up immediately when I had opened up Facebook that confirmed it. And I researched something else that I had seen, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. And so from that moment on, I was like, I can't be lukewarm anymore with what I'm doing. I have to be bold. And then it just grew. So this community that I've built with Eden and Empire that really stemmed from, I think there's so many people who want to integrate their faith into their business, but they don't know what that looks like because the world says you need to pick one or the other, or it's a hot topic. You can't. And I think that we're not people of faith, whatever that looks like. For me, I'm Christian, but whatever your faith looks like, I think having that as whether it's a subtle guide behind the scenes influencing what you're doing, or you're bold like I am, I think it has a place. And I think that's what it was intended for, to kind of integrate into that. So that's the long answer.
No, I feel that. I do feel that. I think to add to one of the points that you made, right? Like you have everything, and you've come to the point to where you are and are continuing to grow because of God, and it's like, I truly believe, at least for myself, and I can't force my beliefs onto anybody else, but I truly believe that like with our talents, with what we have, like we are to take that and we are to give it back. You know what I mean? And so just the aspect of you seeing like, all right, I need to integrate God into my business, like that right there is just giving the glory back.
Yeah.
And it also places you in a position where your business is about business, but it's also another avenue where people can find God.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's huge, and I think that that's super important. Through that, though, I'm sure there were many adversities that you probably faced. Can you talk a little bit about some of those?
Yeah. So I think initially when you start something or go deeper into something, you have some sort of idea. But as you work through things, it kind of looks different in some ways than what you pictured. And so for me, I had a deep understanding that I needed to integrate my faith into my business, but I didn't 100% know what that looked like. It could have been just black and white and saying, I'm going to put God into this, but it's living it out day after day and integrating it. And the more, like the deeper I got with it, the more understanding that I have, because I'm not an expert in the Bible. Like there's so much that I'm learning on a consistent basis, but when I get a deeper understanding of it, it's like, oh, wow, I have to share that. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think that I thought is, because this is what had happened in the past with my business. When God put his hand in it, it moved so fast to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't question that this is him. But then when I made this decision to step bolder in my faith, it was almost as if he was like silent. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is going on? I launched this community. I'm doing all these things where I don't feel you in the same way that I did before. And it had good metrics on paper, but there was something that felt off. And there was so much that I think God was taking me through that I needed to prepare. Because if you're going to lead thousands, which is what I feel like he's placed on my heart, then there's a level of preparation that needs to happen and breaking down and going through. So one of the biggest things I think that I've had to go through lately is understanding like, it's okay to be rejected. It's okay to not need that validation from other people. It's not, his metrics are not the world's metrics. And so you're not going to be following the same blueprint as what, or another framework as a coach or what social media tells you that you need to follow. And that was a really hard mindset to get into, because obviously I coach about that, right? Like with branding and marketing, like analytics and understanding, but I had to shift my mindset, because branding is my first and foremost, and you have to know exactly who you are in order to connect with your people. And so I was like, there's so much that I think that I haven't unpacked about myself that I needed to in order to become more of an effective leader for these women. Whatever that looks like, as far as like whether they're going through rejection or they're going through, needing validation or whatever the case may be, I know that I have to better myself as a leader so that I can help them more effectively. And I think that was one thing that I didn't see, because a lot of it I thought that, first of all, I had dealt with or didn't even know needed dealt with, that he opened up for me. So I was like, okay, I will definitely take this as what it is. And it's a lot of healing, I feel like, needed to happen. So.
Yeah. We're about to dig deeper. You're just opening it up, all these cans, and we're going to continue to go down.
Yes.
So tell me like what that journey was like of understanding who you are, because something that you mentioned, and this is something that I wholeheartedly believe in as well, right? When it comes to branding, you have a community, you have these things, and like you said, the metrics that God has is not going to be the same as the metrics that YouTube, that Facebook, all these different social platforms are going to have. And so how did you start to like internally like look at yourself and start to identify more with what God has and what God is calling you to do, and understanding your own personal brand and how you are going to create this new shift for yourself in the new business venture and idea that you have?
So one of the things is, as I learn scripture more, it gives me so much more clarity on who he's called me to be. So knowing, I think as humans, right? Like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I don't know what you, I don't know if you teach that in your counseling or your sessions or whatnot, but we all have a need that needs met. And in a sense, for us, with God, we have a higher purpose in everything. So we're always striving to know what our purpose is in life. And so number one, I always go back to the foundation, and having clarity on who you are is so, so big, because I think once you know, it allows every other decision in your business to come a lot clearer, because you know that doesn't serve you or it does. And then it allows you to connect with your audience. But I think a lot of times people don't realize their past life experiences are setting them up for so much in their business. Like I believe that God has called you through even the closed doors, right? Like all of these are doors that are closing, that even though it sounds cliche, but it's like another one opens for you because it's closer to, what he's calling you to do, even if it wasn't great. But I feel like all of these life experiences and, even where you are in your birthright, like of your family, like they're setting you up for what he's called you to do. And you have to know, like, it's not easy in the moment for us to know, like, oh, this is exactly where this is leading me. But taking all of those things and saying, okay, so I'll give you an example for myself. When I first got out of school and I was going to go into college, I was like, I'm going to be a doctor, 100%. And life happened, and my parents divorced my senior year, and I had to take on the role of my dad. And I was working 2 jobs because I wanted my mom to stay home, and I was taking college classes. And I was like, unless I want to be in school until I'm like in my 40s, like forever, it just isn't the path for me. But I continued to take medical classes, trying to get in, and every door was a wait list, like wait list. And I was like, oh, I cannot keep living life like this. And he allowed me an amazing corporate job that sustained us for 11 years until God was like, nope, now you're going to have your youngest, and there's no wait list anymore for daycare. Like, you're going to have to stay home. that led me to going full speed with my business and then taking that to the point where, within a few months, he was like, your kids are going to go to daycare. I'm going to open those wait lists that weren't open, put them in daycare, and, your business is going to grow. I never saw that. Like, I thought my path was always going to be, I'm a doctor. And then when it didn't work out, I felt lost. But now I see that it had to lead me to this point where I'm at, where I can help other women integrate faith into their businesses. And I don't know, sometimes it's really hard to know that, like, that's where you're going to go. But when it leads to branding and marketing, I think that you just have to know those things. You have to know who you are, what role these play, because you have certain skills and talents that allow you to lead in a more unique way. So sorry, that was like
no,
long way to your answer.
No, it wasn't. That was perfect. And I think we're going to keep on diving on that. But just to comment on it, like what you just described is like that zero to hero journey. Not saying you were zero, but it's when we're talking about just like our purpose and like what we're called to do and the adversities that we face in our life, right? A lot of times for many people, they're stuck in the position of like, I am victim to my circumstance. Yeah. Which is really no fault of their own, right? Like life happens. But it's when we're able to take our circumstance, own the circumstance, see the lesson in the circumstance and not be the circumstance, but continue because of, going to that hero position that, like you said, we're able to find like who we're called to, what we're called to, and really be able to carry that out. Right. I want to dive back though to that time period where you were mentioning right, like you were like, you knew what you wanted to do. I wanted to be a medical doctor. I was going to go to med school. I was going to do all of this, had it all planned out. And then senior year hits and your parents split up. Take us back there and walk us through just like what that time was like, because that's pretty traumatic. It's pretty traumatic.
Yeah. So senior year, my parents split up and it was everything. My dad had fallen behind in so many, he was the breadwinner. He paid the bills. And in that year, we lost our house, we lost our car, we lost everything. And my dad, I'm sure, was going through, his own stuff. And I can look at it, as it's not black and white. There's so much that in a marriage, there's things that you go through, but he needed to find his own space. And one of the things that I told my mom is, I want you to be home with the kids, because I'm the oldest. At the time, it was of 3 younger siblings. And I'm the oldest by far because my mom had me when she was 15. So I'm at least 8 years older. And then I have a brother who I'm 25 years apart from now. But yes. Which is great because he plays with my son. So they're besties. But in that time, I just knew I didn't want to take on the role of mom as well. And I wanted her to be more present in their lives. And so I was like, I'll work, I can work multiple jobs and help you, take on, let's find a new house. Let's do all of these things. And I just had, I think in some ways, people have asked me this before and it didn't hit me until they asked me, but I think in a lot of ways that wanting more for my life and wanting to strive in the best way came from having a mom who was so young when she had me. And then us going through something traumatic like that, I was like, I don't want that anymore. Like, what is the best career that I can take? She's in the medical field. And so I'm like, let's go that route. And I think instinctively it was like, you could be a doctor, you're going to make a lot of money. And I think that God knew that's not what was truly for me, is that and anything in healthcare. And now when I look at COVID and all those things, I couldn't imagine having gone through all of that. And but everything was a wait list. Everything. I would get so close and I'd retake classes and do all these things. But I think that he was leading me away from something that was never meant for me. And I think a lot of the things during that time, I don't look at it, there's no animosity towards my dad or anything like that. And technically he's my stepdad because my biological father, I never met, but I don't hold on to any of that because I feel like he went through his own things in that time. And what I do feel like it taught me is this drive to constantly be like, okay, how do I provide the best for my family? And, the nurturing of my brothers and sisters, I think helps me as a mom to see that we can have that, where we can have an identity outside of a parent, and have careers and have all of these things. But I think during that time, it was just really hard. You know, you're going through school and it felt like I'm never going to get anywhere. Like, this is not, I don't have a degree to fall back on, even with corporate. And it was just a lot. It was a lot to take on. And I mean, thankfully I had my husband he wasn't my husband at the time, but he was somebody to lean on as well. But it was really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, I almost forgot. As a licensed therapist, I'm big on mental health, and I'm big on making sure that you're taking care of you. And I also want to get rid of this stigma that we got towards mental health. Like, there's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. So if you're somebody that's out there that really wants to start getting their mind right, who wants to really start understanding their emotions and being able to process things that you probably repressed, that you probably ain't talked about, that you might have been even ashamed about talking about. Or check this out, you might not be ashamed about it and you just ain't found a person for you to talk to. You want to find somebody that's relatable, that can understand you, got a little swag, you know what I'm saying? A little swag. And they not too far removed. Make sure that you tap in with Bear Company Counseling. All you gotta do is hop down in the description, click the link, put in your info, and the front desk rep will reach out to you and get you plugged in with a therapist that I promise you, as long as you're ready, will help you to get whatever you need right up here so that you can succeed in every other avenue and aspect of your life. Tap in with a therapist today at Bear Company Counseling. Now you can get back to the video for real. I promise I won't hop back in again.
I know you said there's no resentment now, but when it initially all happened, was there like any resentment towards your dad for the situation, and how did you kind of process or deal with that, or what was the journey like going from like having these harbored feelings to it almost essentially sounds like you forgave them?
Yeah. I think with my parents, it's just one of those. It might have been more this. So my biological father didn't want to have anything to do with me, right? And he was young, so I understand that aspect of it. I think so what ended up happening is I kind of developed this like, okay, it's fine. I don't need you. I don't need this. I don't need that. And I was fine just taking on that role in a sense. I think it's that mentality. You just need to do what you need to do in the situation. Mm-hmm. And, but I mean, there was a lot of anger, and, when you leave and you have kids and it's like, what are we going to do? You have to pick up your life and figure things out. I mean, in some ways he didn't completely leave, right? Like he was still there, but the financial aspect, and he had lost his job. There were so many, it was so multifaceted that it wasn't just as simple as saying, I'm mad at you for leaving, because I knew that there was more to it. Even I think I was, 17 at the time. So I knew some aspects. I had seen their marriage and, other areas. So there was anger towards him, and it was really hard dealing. My mom and I are different in the sense that she, I think, is more emotion-based and I'm more logical. And so it's like, I'm like, let's go, let's pick up, let's do this. And, I could imagine you just got divorced. So it would be really hard. But there wasn't that. I think a long time ago, there was that forgiveness and saying that this is the first time my parents are doing this. This is their first marriage. There's a lot that they're going through. It's not that simple. And then when I became a parent, and as I'm married, it's like I can absolutely see it a lot clearer that it's just not as easy as what you think it is when you're a kid. So
yeah.
But
the dynamic of like becoming, you said almost like becoming another father to your siblings, and like picking up that breadwinning role at 17. Mm-hmm. Like that in itself though is traumatic. Mm-hmm. And it leads me to ask this question for you. Are there times where you find yourself constantly go, and not taking time to take care of this one right here?
Oh, 100%. So I think that's the biggest thing. God has had to kind of, I don't know what the best term would be, push out of me, like knock out of me. And that I think is the biggest thing that I try to do with Eden and Empire in our community is you have to run a sustainable business. I think just inherently as somebody who did experience that in the go stages, because I was working 2 jobs and going to school full time. And that's been my life. Like, I think that's just been ingrained in me for so long that I'm so used to having to juggle so many things. I have a higher tolerance of stress or workload or whatnot. But really, in reality, I think that is, I just have a lower like meter of when my self-care is really in need. And so what ended up happening is I think that God was like, if you're going to do this community and you're going to lead women, you have to do it in the right way. You have to do it sustainably. And initially when I grew it, I was so focused on the metrics. I'm like, I'm going to help this many women and we're going to make this much and we're going to do this and this and this. And he was like, I'm going to stop you before it even starts. We need to rework that. And when I started my business, like I had mentioned, what I had seen is that God moved fast. And so I was taking on all the clients and doing everything. And meanwhile, I still had my boys at home with me. And so I was juggling that and trying to take on clients. And I found myself so stressed out, so burnt out. And thankfully, you know, they were in daycare at a certain point. But even then, I think you get the excitement of, wow, this is the validation I need, that this is actually working. I'm getting clients and we're growing and I'm making really good money. So let's keep moving in this momentum. But what I had to learn is that it's not about the dollar amount. And so over a period of time, I would just offload clients and offload and offload and offload to the point where I was like, what is the bare minimum that I need to make in order for me to at least recognize that my family is still a priority and I can dedicate time to them and I'm a priority and, you know, my faith is a priority. And so I think that I had to go through those seasons of just burnout and stress and whatnot for God to show me like, this is what I intended business to be. Like, you can make great money, but I still want you to recognize you have family and that's your calling as well. And your faith is a huge part of, you know, everything that you're doing. You just have to be able to, I don't like the word balance because I don't believe that's what it is. Yeah. You have to be able to prioritize. So, you know, right now my oldest is out of school and I have the blessing of saying I get to be home with him if I want to. And I take on less hours in a day and I can juggle my schedule. And, you know, and when he's back in school, I can take on as much as I want. So I think that, you know, I had to go through those seasons of just extreme burnout for me to recognize that that's not how it was intended to be. So
can you talk more about business sustainability? Mm-hmm. Because I think in a day and age where hustle culture, which like I've been a part of hustle culture, and I think that there's some aspects of hustle culture that like just running a business, like you have to adopt. Mm-hmm. But then there's also that piece that you speak to of like, is what I'm doing going to be sustainable long term? Right. Can you speak more on that and just like what, and I mean, you talked about it, like being able to be home with your kiddos, being able to still prioritize your faith and your family too. Just talk, because that's something I think people need to hear and they need to know because they'll get into business and it's like, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna have a 14-hour day. I need 1,000 clients because if I have 1,000 clients at $100 a month, I can make that. And it's just like, okay, but like, can you do that for 10 years?
Exactly. I think it's a hard shift because the world tells you a successful business is numbers driven, right? It's all about the revenue, how much you're making. And it's, I always preface this by saying it doesn't mean like those things are meaningful, right? Like they are great indicators, but it's not the only indication of a successful business. And I feel like when you are doing things in a way that you love and as they're meant to be in a sustainable way, it grows. So sustainability can look like you grow your business and when you can, you hire on people so that it takes off that workload. That doesn't mean you're making less money. It just means you're doing it in a way that is more feasible for you. Mm-hmm. And of course, as business owners, we wear a million different hats, but I think that ultimately, you know, they always say like, what's your why, right? Why'd you go into business? And when you ask them 9 times out of 10, what their answer leads to is more freedom. But then you're taking away the freedom by working more and seeing probably the people that you want the freedom with a lot less. And it's like, what does the money in the bank really mean to you? And what does that provide you with if you're not getting to see or live out what you originally started out your business for? There's this parable, and I really should know it because I quote it all the time. I always mess it up. But if you guys ever look it up, it's about like this man on the boat, and there's this guy that's a fisherman and he's a businessman, and a man comes up to him and, he's caught like a ton of fish, and he's like, wow, that's great. You should start a business. You could sell it at the market and you could make all this money and this, and this. And the thing that it boils down to that the businessman says, but then I wouldn't be able to fish. I wouldn't be able to be here doing what I'm doing right now. And so I think ultimately that's the biggest thing is like, what does that mean to you? Like, we're so driven by the revenue. I have so much peace of mind and so much clarity and joy in what I'm doing now. And I make the same as when I had all those 10, 15, 20 clients that I was so burnt out and stressed with. And I think it's because I've really understood the value of who I am, like my worth, and saying, I need to charge more, for one. I am an expert in what I do. So I've niched down. I've become a subject matter expert, allowing me to charge more. It's all of these things that I think that we think, okay, amazing, I'm in business and this looks great on paper, but is it really? I've turned down so many things that they look amazing on paper, but at what cost? So I think that that's the key to running something that's sustainable is like, why are you doing it? Yes, in hustle, there is times and seasons in business where we do need to go a little bit harder. And that's why I say it's not balanced to me. Sometimes my family gets more of me in certain seasons. And sometimes when I have a launch or something really big coming up, that gets my attention, but for a short period of time. And I'm still mindful of, my energy levels and all of these other things. So
I hear that. I hear that. I want to talk more about Eden Empire. Tell us about that community. How did you formulate it? And then just like from the business side of it, right? Like, what is your framework for it? Like, how are you getting your clients? I'm about to ask a lot of stuff. So
it's fine. I'll try to remember it all.
And if you don't, we'll find different ways to navigate. But like how do you get clients? Like, how did you figure out on pricing and what it costs to be a part of the community, and like what do you offer to the community as a whole?
Yeah. So the biggest thing with Eden and Empire is it came from the need that I saw to bridge faith and business. And I think so many women and men, but women are who I coach, but the need to, and that just happened organically too, because I was so like, when I first started, business was, men and women, but it just organically, I noticed that I can connect deeper with moms, or I can connect deeper with women in a way that I can't with men. And so in that sense, I had past experience that allowed me to say, I think I'm uniquely positioned to help women. And so it came from the need of seeing that women are burnt out. I mean, most businesses are burnt out, but business owners are burnt out, but women are burnt out. They have a different mentality, I feel like, and a mental load that a lot of men don't have. And they have this strong desire. Like, this is probably stereotypical, but I think with women, they want to nurture, but they also want an identity outside of that. And a lot of times they feel like, I can't do both. And I'm really big on, you are called in different areas. I don't believe that God called you just to be a mom, and some women are, but as business owners, I feel like we have this drive to want to have more. And so, it just came from a need and my own personal experience. I think a lot of times we're our own most ideal client, because we saw a need in an area and we created a business to solve that problem. And so so I had to experience a lot of those things to understand what I think women really genuinely need, and what they've told me and what I've seen and coached through. And so the framework came to be in that a lot of it was based on scripture. When you fully understand what God is calling business, I mean, I like to say that we're kind of co-creators in the sense that he allowed you to create something out of nothing. And, he gives you these skills and talents and whatnot. And he gives you your own roadmap, because I don't believe that yes, you can follow ideas and strategies and whatnot, but the way that you do it is so different than what anybody else will ever do it. And so, it's really based on finding your identity and who you are, who God has called you to be, and then finding your people, connecting with them and serving them based on how God intends for us to treat other people, to run businesses, and just those values. And the framework is really centered around that. It's centered around elevating your business is essentially what it is, and branding and marketing strategies, and bringing in coaches and experts in areas that I'm not an expert in business. And really, going deeper in your faith, understanding the Bible, understanding how to apply it to business. Mm-hmm. Because I think when we understand that, it helps us to take those, opportunities that are great, and we can recognize that that's probably from God, versus that's a closed door. It may look good on paper, but that's actually not meant for me. And just having that, I think, contentment and knowing that the impact doesn't necessarily always come from numbers. Sometimes it comes from just the people that you're helping, the interactions, and the ripple effect that it creates by you. I might coach 10 women, and then they're able to help more and more and more. So it spreads. And I think it's just a different mindset than what the world teaches you that I felt like was so needed. Yeah. So I probably didn't answer most of the questions you asked.
But you're answering it. You're answering it. So when, let's say there's a woman who has a business and they want to join, like, how does that process start? I know off camera we were talking about you have an opt-in that people come through, and then you have emails that go out. Mm-hmm. But is there like a sort of value ladder that you have where it's like I can come in and I can just, you mentioned a course, like I can just do the course, or I can work with you directly. You get what I'm saying?
Yep, my funnel. Yeah. So essentially what that looks like is it's multifaceted, because I believe with the women that I coach, first of all, they're at different levels, different stages within their business. So they have a different need. And so, yes, we do have different opt-ins or lead magnets or freebies that people can gain access to, essentially. But with that, we have Bible studies, and I think that's a huge, important part that will always stay free. And that's, it's available to people within the membership. But I actually don't open the doors to Eden and Empire. They're not open all the time. So we have cohorts. And what I believe is there is a level of when you have community and like a sisterhood, and you're growing at the same time, and you can really understand things together and lean on one another, that's big. And so the best way I've found to do that is through cohorts that we open periodically. Generally it's quarterly. Quarterly. Mm-hmm. But the membership, it isn't always available or open to everyone to join all at once, but there are different tiers. If you're somebody who wants to come in and just learn, how do I create an amazing Canva template, or how do I navigate this? How do I create, a blog that's optimized, just anything that pertains to branding and marketing. We have many videos that you can access at any time. But when you're somebody who needs to grow their business, that's where the cohorts come in at different stages. So,
in the cohorts, if you tell me if I'm digging too much in there,
go right in.
In your cohorts, how often are you guys meeting? What is that? Is it group? Is it individual? What's the? Yeah,
so we have different tiers. So based on your needs, if you're somebody who strives or thrives in the group setting, we have one cohort that, we do it as a group. They don't get as high touch access to me. So we do a lot of group meetings and whatnot, and that happens monthly. But there's so much, because I know as a business owner, when you are growing something and trying to learn, it can be really overwhelming. When you are, even if it's once a week, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it's already Thursday, for us to meet. And I know that can be a lot to do to meet and to implement. So I try to do it all in a way that's sustainable. But there are some business owners that are like, I'm dedicating, all my time to this. And so they get higher, they get more access to me through like Voxer or text or whatnot. And then we meet. The only one-on-one work I do that's outside of cohorts, and that's one-on-one work with clients. So they have all access to me essentially, within reason. But yeah, it just depends on what your level is. I try to make it sustainable. When we first launched Eden and Empire, it was just one, and you had access kind of in a DIY, but I think there's some accountability level that people need, that I found that let's beef this up and do more so you get more access to me. Plus it wasn't sustainable for me to be available to people all the time. Yeah. So yeah,
it's just constant work. I know what that's like.
Yes.
I had a coaching program 2021 that I was doing, and I was trying to figure out like how do we do this thing, and so everybody had access to me all the time. And it was like, this is cool, but I need to spend some time with my family. I want to chill a little bit. Please don't text me right now.
Yes.
You can't call me right now.
Boundaries.
No, we can't schedule this meeting for an hour from
right.
No.
Yeah. Boundaries are huge. Boundaries are something that I strive for all the time. But when it comes to business, I think there's simple ways to have those boundaries. And it's as simple as saying, this is my calendar availability. I'm not available during this time. One of the biggest things I did in the beginning, I was going to all the networking events, and I was on all the boards, and I did all the things. And that was great in some respects because it helped build brand recognition, and I grew my network and whatnot. But that meant my husband had to come home early, and I was leaving my boys at night, and he had to do bedtime, and it was just a mess, and I didn't enjoy it because I missed them. And so I don't do that, like, if at all anymore, because I didn't find joy in it. And I was like, what is this if I'm not happy and I'm away from my family? So I think those boundaries are, and you will find as a business owner, I'm sure you've recognized this too, but like people will cater a lot more to your schedule than what you think. I think we always have to be available. Otherwise we'll lose the client. And that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, not at all. He was kind of like a mentor. I guess we would call him a mentor. He spoke at one of these events that I was at, and he was like, he realized late in his career, he does financial advising. He realized late in his career that he didn't need to take every single opportunity, every single client, every single meeting, every single speaking engagement like he did early on. He sacrificed the time that he could have been spending with his daughters, going to different sporting events, time with his wife, time with his family, because he didn't have any of those boundaries. And something that he mentioned was, from the start of your business, you should set up everything that you're going to be willing to do around the life outside of your business and not the other way around. So many business owners will set up their life around their business, which then is like, I have very little time to spend with you. I have very little time to see you. I have very little time to be here, be present, and all these different things. When it's like, if we do it that way, we potentially are setting ourselves up to have all of these accomplishments with business, but nobody to share it with. And it's like, to be in that type of position where it's like, okay, let's say your business does financially kick off. Now I have this financial success, but I don't have a family to enjoy it with.
Right. At what cost? Yep. I was big on, for a while, I didn't think you could have both, because what I had seen so much of is you had this thriving business, which meant you were gone so much. You didn't really have time with the family. And if you put all your focus in your family, you were, sacrificing your business. One of the biggest things we came up with Eden and Empire is that you don't have to sacrifice what's sacred to you to build something of significance. And I believe that that's so true, because if you have faith, one of the things that it ends up working out, the money will come. And I think it's just having remembering that's what God has in store. If you're following what he's called you to do, he's going to see it through. So I think a lot of times we're just so focused on the revenue aspect of it, which I will say I'm blessed in the sense of, I do have a significant other. So the financial burden doesn't all fall on me, but being obedient to what God has called me to do multiple times, even when it was a hard pill to swallow to say, I'm offloading 3 clients right now because I know that I have to put my focus in what God has called me to. He's seen it through times 10 every single time. And I think he's just waiting for that obedience to kick in, to see, will you really do this? Are you holding on to the money, or are you holding on to what I'm calling you to? And he's moved every time. So
come on. Is it difficult to get the women that you work with to understand this concept? Because I think for a lot of people that get into business, right, they're like, I want to start this business because I want to make money and I want to do it fast.
Right.
But the mindset shift that I hear you wanting to impart to individuals is like, yes, you can make money, but again, are we taking into account sustainability? Are we taking into account like purpose, and are we walking in our purpose? Are we looking at the metrics from a standpoint of not solely social media driven or platform driven, but God's metrics? Like how is it trying to get these women to see it from that vantage point? Yeah.
So a lot of times it depends on the client avatar in a sense. So there are women that they have experienced so much burnout and lack of sustainability in their business that they already know that what they're doing isn't sustainable and they have to make that shift. Or when you're working with women who are a little bit newer in business, I think they think, well, this is what the world tells me to. So they're the ones that are a little bit harder to convince that it's not all about the revenue, when that's, when you're new in business, that's what you're holding on to everything. And you're like, I just need to make money. And so I think that, yes, it is a hard mindset shift because a lot of people are so of the world and what the world tells us. And I feel like, in all the research, there's really not a lot that business is teaching you how to integrate both. And so I think it's a different mentality. You're kind of stepping into something completely new that they have to shift that way of thinking. But when you back it with scripture, a lot of times they're like, okay, that makes sense. So
have you ever had somebody who sought you out for services but wasn't necessarily faith driven? And what was that experience like? Were you able to retain them as a client, or was it a smooth parting of ways? You get what I'm saying?
So I mean, even though that's a big part, like I'm very front and center with my business, being faith driven, but I absolutely take on clients that has nothing, that's no part in it. For example, my husband has a landscaping business and faith isn't forward facing in his business. And so, you go back to brand and market strategy, of course, it's, it doesn't have to be, but I think for some women and a lot of women, that's not part of their brand messaging. It's not apparent in their social media or their marketing or anything like that. But yeah, absolutely. And so when I do work with clients like that, if they contact me, and I've had so many that like when they first contact me, I have no idea, I have no idea what their faith is. And they'll organically say, oh, that's why I sought you out or whatnot. But it's never first and foremost, So.
No, I get that. I get that. I want to pivot a little bit because we're starting to get close on time. When it comes to just like branding and marketing, what do you think are like top 3 strategies? Let's say for me, like I have a business and I want my business to become known. I want to be able to understand like my direct target population, and I want to be able to engage with them more because right now I'm not engaging with them. Yeah. Like, what would you say are like 3 key things that I need to take into account or know or implement in order to be able to do that very thing?
Yeah. So knowing what you're really great at. I think a lot of people think that, okay, I need to be, a jack of all trades and I need to, this, and this, or I'll miss this population or this demographic and whatnot. actually being specialized or an expert in certain areas allows you to find your audience a lot quicker, because it's pretty cut and dry. Like, you know, I specialize in this type of therapy, or I'm really great at this. That actually allows you to charge a premium because you're great at it. You know, it segments out. And if you look at the luxury market, they want the best of the best. Mm-hmm. So that to me, when you are really great at one thing, or, you know, a specific set of things, then that can really help you in so many different areas. And a lot of people, that's what you strive for. When I work with a lot of photographers, and a lot of them are like senior portraits and newborns and family and all these things. And I'm like, if you specialize in one, you can charge so much more money, and you're great at it. You don't have to learn all these different things. You just become really great at what you're doing. So that'd be number one is knowing who you are, knowing what you're great at, and honing in on that. Therefore, it also allows you to know your audience more. So you know where they hang out, what they like, what they struggle with, but going deeper into that. A lot of people focus on the surface level, like, oh, where do they live? How much money do they make? Like those demographics. You need to go into those things that they don't talk about, those pain points that they're really struggling with, the things that keep them up at night. Because the way that marketing and social media is driven in the world we live in now is it's pick me, pick me, pick me. And there's so much noise. Like, how do you stand out amongst that? And when you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people need one of those things. And if you can address a need that they have and catch their attention right away, I mean, you can already differentiate yourself from so many other people in the market. And I think knowing your audience on a deeper level plays a bigger role. And then you just know how to create your offers or your services or your products around what will actually satisfy their needs, not just based on a guess. Did you say 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last one would be have something to offer them, like consistently, right? Like, so we talk about offers. It's not just for service-based businesses or coaches or whatnot. Like, give something to offer your clients so that you can bring them in and then nurture them. A lot of businesses will get one client and then they think, oh, I have to go out and find like another client. When if you really know your audience, you know that they're multifaceted. Most often they need other things than just the one. And keeping up with them, keeping in that like nurture sequence. So you're just continuing to provide stuff to them. To me, email marketing is like top tier because you own it. You are more likely to be seen. And I think that's where most people, that's where the conversion happens. I'm trying not to use jargon, but I can't think of any other better words. But yeah, you don't always have to find new clients. Like, love the ones that you have, create stuff surrounding what they need. But that really, I always start at the foundation is knowing who you are. So when you know who you are, then that helps to know your audience, and then all of the other, segments of your business, and the decisions come a lot clearer. So
yeah. In an online service-based business, how do you figure out how to package an offer, right? Because I think there's so many ways that you can package an offer. There's so many ways that you can deliver offers. There are so many offer like styles that you could have. But specifically for you, how did you figure out how, or like what kind of offer you wanted to have? I know you spoke to the pain points, you did all of that, but even just like the concept of the different tiers that you offer, like how did that even come about?
A lot of it's backed in research. So researching what converts best, buyer, psychology, all of those different things. What is I know I probably harp on this, but it's really knowing your audience, right? Like, if I'm working with moms, I'm going to know that they're not going to want an 80-page booklet, to read through, and they're not going to want to do Zooms at bedtime, right? Because that doesn't serve them, and it's not feasible for most of them. And so it's going to become an additional pain point for them. I want to meet them where they're at. And so creating things that make the most sense to the things that they're struggling with. And that's why it's so important. Like, if I just created an offer and crossed my fingers, and it had no research or science or, knowledge behind it, then it probably would fall flat. But I mean, even with some of those things, they don't always convert, with knowing some of those. Sometimes it's testing and figuring out like, okay, I think this would perform well, but it doesn't always. So then I think too, social media is a great indication. I think a lot of times people use social media for the wrong things. But social media is an indication. To me, it's great for your brand awareness. And if you have things that are performing well, create more of it. I think we hear that, but we don't really know what that means. Mm-hmm. So when people are like, I don't know what my people are struggling with, they're literally telling you on social media.
Every day.
It's very, they make it pretty apparent. Facebook groups, you go deeper, people are sharing a lot more in that. But I think it's just most often business owners just start and they're like, I have a great product. I'm gaining success, but they don't go back to like, what do I want? What are the boundaries I want in my business? What am I striving for? And then what does my audience want? And then figuring out, it's just kind of like cross our fingers or throw it, noodle out the wall and see if it sticks. But I think if you just take time to understand those things, it will help a lot in your business. So
definitely. 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
Then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
Question number 1. Where do you host your community at? Is it like a Facebook group? Do you have a school group?
Yeah. Circle. Yeah.
What is Circle? I've never heard of Circle.
Circle is very similar to probably school. Okay. When I was researching, I am so big. Obviously, I do branding and marketing. So the visual identity of things, and it has to be accessible. Circle was one of the ones that was great. And it allowed for a lot of customization. But what I have found is, so I use Go High Level from my CRM. Yeah. They have almost the exact same thing. So I'll probably integrate so I can save some on that end. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Circle was a great option. And eventually they'll have the option to do like a branded app. But I think Go High Level will have that capability as well soon. So
got you. Yeah, I need to get on that. Before, when I had my community, I had a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And Facebook groups are good.
Yeah.
But then I feel like bots just they overtake it, and then it just becomes like something that you don't want it to be. And so right now, just like with all of my online stuff, like I use Kajabi. Yeah. And they just added a community platform, but I haven't quite like put my foot down. I'm gonna just go do this. Yeah. Just because I have been looking at other ones, and like my coach that I currently work with uses school. Yeah. And so just kind of figuring that out. I think I'm gonna check it out. I think
the differences between a lot of these are just very minute, and so it's more of just a preference. Yeah. So that was just my preference at the time.
Facts. Second question and final question. What would you leave the people with that are wanting to get into business, that are wanting to just like elevate, grow in life? What are like some parting words for them, or things that they could take from everything that we talked about today?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that go past the revenue, right? See past the dollar amount, the numbers, figure out what it is that you actually want, set those boundaries, and then grow your business around that. I think that we get so caught up in the numbers and what the world thinks that we need. And in reality, your business is so unique to you and your family and your wants and your future that's just best to base it on what you need as a business owner in your own unique way. So
love that.
Yeah.
Vanessa, I appreciate you coming on today and just sharing your story, sharing your knowledge, giving me some information that I could take as well too. And then also for the people that are watching, they're definitely going to benefit from this. I just wish continued success with your business ventures, continued success with your podcast. Real quick, go ahead and plug your podcast too, just in case there's somebody that's watching that might want to connect and might want to dig into more of what you have to offer. Go ahead and plug in.
Yeah. Okay. So my podcast is the Eat and Edit, and that's on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Facts. And if they want to potentially, if there's a woman out there or a mom that is wanting to dive deeper with the services that you offer, where can they find that at also?
Yeah, so on all social, I'm at Mitera Branding, and then that's my website, miterabranding.com. And then Eden and Empire has its own separate sub website, but you can find it there as well. So
Facts.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for everybody that's watching, I appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode of the CYR Podcast. Like I said, if you clean your room, you change your life, you create your resilience, and you create your own reality. We out. That was smooth.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.